I'd come over to play games with her brother. That was the plan. Quick rounds of Street Fighter, a few beers, a lazy Saturday. But instead, she answered. Not just answered. She filled the doorway like she'd been waiting there all along. Elena. I knew she existed, the older sister who'd moved back home after the divorce. But in my head, she was just a background character. A name in passing. In person, though, she wasn't background. She was presence. The smell of cinnamon tea and old paper drifted past her shoulder. She looked at me like she already knew I didn't belong there. Not unkindly, just accurately. Her eyes lingered a second too long, curious but careful. The kind of gaze that says more than any greeting. Ryan's upstairs, she said, voice steady, a little lower than I expected. You can go up if you want. Or, you can wait here. I don't know why I chose to stay. Maybe because she'd said it like a dare. The living room looked lived in the comforting, slightly chaotic way of someone who'd stopped pretending. A book left open on the arm of the couch, a half-empty mug on the coffee table, slippers pointed in opposite directions. It felt like a life mid-breath. She went back to whatever she was doing at the table, sorting receipts, maybe bills, but there was this quiet rhythm between us. Not silence, not noise. Something in between. I tried to make small talk. Something about the ring. Something about how her brother still owed me a controller. She smiled, just barely, like it was more effort than the joke deserved. Then she asked, You still studying? Trying to, I said. Mostly avoiding it. Smart man, she murmured. Her tone wasn't teasing, more like she understood the exhaustion underneath. There was a flicker then, the smallest one, like a static shock you can't see but you feel. Her hand brushed mine when she reached for a receipt. Neither of us pulled back right away. I don't think she meant to touch me. I don't think I meant to hold still. Ryan's footsteps upstairs broke it. She stood up too quickly, muttered something about tea, and went into the kitchen. When she came back, she set a cup down in front of me. Steam curled between us like a secret we hadn't earned yet. I don't really like tea, I said. I didn't make it for you, she replied. But her eyes said something else, something that made the room feel too warm, too still. When Ryan finally came down, the moment dissolved. He didn't notice the half-drunk cup sitting next to me. Didn't notice that she wouldn't meet my eyes anymore. We went upstairs, booted up the console, tried to get back into the easy rhythm of competition. But my hands didn't listen. I kept missing combos. I kept thinking about her hand brushing mine, about how she'd said, You can wait here, like it was an invitation she didn't mean to offer. And when Ryan shouted over the noise of the game, Hey, man, what level are we on? I almost said the wrong thing, because the real level wasn't on the screen. It was still sitting downstairs, cooling in a cup I didn't drink, waiting for no one in particular. It was supposed to be quick, just helping her move a few boxes down to the basement. Ryan had left for work, said I was stronger and lazier than anyone he knew. And Elena had laughed, the sound light, but tired. She didn't argue when I offered to help. Maybe she didn't want to be alone. The house felt different without her brother in it. Quieter, somehow heavier. The air carried that stillness you get after a storm, when things haven't quite settled. She led me to the hallway, where a stack of cardboard boxes leaned like they'd been waiting weeks for someone to notice. They're mostly old papers, she said, brushing dust from her hands. You'll regret volunteering once we get to the bottom. I've survived worse, I said, trying for lightness. She gave me a look, not unkind, not amused either, just one of those unreadable looks people give when they're half somewhere else. Then she bent down to open the first box. Her hands moved slowly, precisely. I noticed the small cut on her knuckle, the faint tremor when she lifted something heavier than she meant to. I wanted to ask if she was okay, but she didn't seem like someone who liked being asked that. We worked in near silence, the kind that fills with unspoken thoughts. Every now and then, she'd make a small sound, a quiet hum, a sigh, something between memory and fatigue. At one point, a folder slipped from her hand, scattering papers across the floor. I crouched down to help, but she froze, staring at one of the pages like she'd just seen something private. Her face shifted, not dramatically, just a flicker, a tightening of her mouth, a shallow inhale. She folded the page carefully, tucked it under her arm, and said, That one doesn't matter. But I could tell it did. We finished stacking the boxes, both pretending it was just work. When she straightened up, brushing her palms on her jeans, she looked at me for the first time in a while. Really looked. Her eyes softened, then darted away. "You're quiet," she said. "I don't know what to say." "That's rare," she murmured, half smiling. "Most people fill silence with noise." "I like hearing you think," I said before I could stop myself. That made her pause. The faintest color rose in her cheeks. She turned toward the window, arms crossed, pretending to study the light outside. "Don't," she said softly. "Don't what?" "Don't look at me like that." I hadn't realized I was. Or maybe I had. The air between us thickened, delicate and dangerous all at once. She picked up a stray folder, tapping it against her thigh as if to reset something invisible. When I reached to take it from her, our fingers brushed again, a quick, accidental touch. But this time, neither of us moved away. Not right away. The moment stretched, a breath too long, too full. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "You should go before Ryan gets home." I did. But even hours later, I could still feel the warmth of her skin against mine, small and stubborn, like a secret I wasn't supposed to keep. It rained that evening, not a soft drizzle, but a steady downpour that blurred the world into silence. I'd come to drop off Ryan's jacket, the one he'd left in my car. I told myself it was just a quick errand, a polite gesture. But when I knocked, it was Elena again who answered, barefoot, sweater sleeves pushed up, hair loose in a way I hadn't seen before. "Ryan's working late," she said, already stepping aside. "You can wait if you want. The storm's bad." The sound of rain filled the small kitchen, pattering against the windows while she poured herself wine. She offered me a glass without asking if I wanted one. I took it anyway. We sat across from each other at the counter, the only light coming from a small lamp over the sink. It threw everything in amber tones. Her eyes, the rim of her glass, the steam still curling from the pot on the stove. She looked tired, not in the way people do after a long day, but in the way someone gets when they've been strong too long. "I used to love nights like this," she said, tracing the edge of her glass. "When it rained, it felt like the world slowed down enough to breathe." "You don't anymore?" Her smile was almost invisible. "Not lately. Now it just feels like noise I can't turn off." Something in me tightened. I wanted to say something. Anything. But every word felt too heavy, too presumptuous. So instead, I asked, "Do you ever miss it?" The quiet. She looked up then, straight at me. All the time. The space between us seemed to shrink with that look. I caught the faint smell of lavender and rain, the warmth radiating from her skin. My heartbeat felt out of place in the stillness. Then her phone lit up on the counter, a name flashing briefly before she turned it over. Her hand lingered there, fingers pressing the phone down like she could stop whatever it carried. "Your ex?" I asked before thinking. She didn't answer, just said, "It doesn't matter," in a voice that clearly meant it did. The silence stretched. A branch tapped against the window, the light flickered. She laughed quietly, almost embarrassed. "I should check the fuse box. This house doesn't like storms." I stood up too quickly, knocking my knee against the stool. "I'll help." We moved through the dark hallway together, our shoulders brushing once, twice. Each accidental contact felt deliberate by the third. When she opened the basement door, she hesitated. "It's fine, really. You don't have to." "I know." We stood there, both pretending we weren't waiting for something else to happen. The storm outside filled the silence again, hard and unrelenting. She turned toward me, close enough that I could see the faint line at the corner of her mouth, the one that deepened when she tried not to smile. For a second, I thought she might reach for me. Or maybe I thought I might. But neither of us did. The light flickered once more, and she whispered, "You should go before the rain stops." I nodded. But when I stepped out into the storm, I realized I didn't want it to stop at all. A week passed before I saw her again. Ryan had asked me to drop off a hard drive, said Elena would be home. He didn't notice how my answer came too quickly, how my voice caught on sure. The rain had been replaced by a brittle kind of sunlight, the kind that makes dust glow in the air, like the world's still recovering from something. She opened the door slower this time. Not surprised. Not welcoming either. Just cautious. You're persistent, she said. Just returning something. Her eyes flicked to the drive in my hand, then to me. You could have left it with Ryan. I could have. That earned me a small, breathless laugh, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. She stepped aside anyway. The house felt colder. The mug on the counter was half empty again, but the tea had gone untouched. There was a faint hum from the refrigerator, the only sound in the room. She stood by the sink, her hands folded together. I stayed by the table, unsure of the rules anymore. Finally, she said, we should stop this. I frowned. Stop what? This. Her hand moved vaguely between us. Whatever this is. I waited for her to explain, but she didn't. Her silence filled the room, heavy and tender all at once. You mean talking? I asked. Her lips tightened. No, I mean pretending we're just talking. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. She turned away, exhaling slowly. You look at me like I'm someone you shouldn't. I swallowed. Maybe I do. That's the problem, she said softly. You don't even know what you're looking for. I know it's not pity. That stopped her. She turned, eyes searching my face. Not angry, not sad, just unbearably open. You think that's what this is? I don't know what this is, I said. I just know it's not nothing. Her breath hitched, the smallest sound, but it broke something in the room. She crossed her arms like she was cold. You're too young to be saying things like that. And you're too smart to believe age makes it easier. The silence after that was brutal. She looked away first, toward the window. The late afternoon light caught in her hair, making it look almost gold. Do you know what happens when you get used to being alone? She said finally. You start mistaking any warmth for safety. I'm not trying to save you. I know, she whispered. That's what makes it worse. She set the mug down too hard, a dull clink, and pressed her palms to the counter like she needed to steady herself. I took a step closer before I could stop myself. Just one. She didn't move, but her voice was quieter now, frayed around the edges. You should go, Noah, before we both say something we can't take back. I didn't argue. I couldn't. When I left, she didn't watch me go. But as the door closed, I heard her whisper, not to me, maybe not even to herself. I forgot how dangerous it is to feel alive again. It had been almost a month since that afternoon. We hadn't spoken, not even in passing. I thought maybe the distance would make it fade, the tension, the pull, the confusion that lived in the space between her words. It didn't. I saw her again by accident, at the bookstore near campus. She was standing in the photography aisle, thumbing through a heavy book like it was fragile. Her hair was tied back, loose strands framing her face. She looked smaller somehow, or maybe I was just seeing her differently, less untouchable, more human. She saw me before I could decide whether to walk away. For a second, neither of us said anything. Then she smiled, quiet, careful. No rain this time, she said. Not yet, I answered. Maybe it's waiting for us. That got a real laugh out of her, short but alive. She closed the book and handed it to me. You'd like this one, she said. It was a collection of black and white portraits. People mid-laughter, mid-tears, mid-life. Every face looked like it had a story it wasn't ready to tell. You ever take photos? I asked. Used to, she said. Long time ago. There was something in her tone, something unfinished. I flipped to the back and froze. Inside the dust jacket was a small photograph, tucked like a bookmark. A woman sitting on a park bench, holding a camera, sunlight slicing through the trees. The photo was faded, soft around the edges, but it was her. Younger. Lighter. Is this you? Her breath caught. Where did you? She took the book gently, eyes fixed on the image. I didn't think he'd still have it. He. She hesitated, then said, my ex-husband. He was a photographer. Used to say he only loved me when the light was right. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I found this book once when we were still together. He said it reminded him of how I used to look before we got married. I didn't know what to say to that. Some griefs you can't comfort. They're too old, too familiar. She closed the book slowly. I shouldn't be telling you this. Maybe you needed to, I said. Her fingers brushed the cover, lingering over her younger face. You remind me of him sometimes, she said softly. Not the man he became. The one he was before everything went wrong. The words hit something I didn't know was exposed. I didn't know whether to feel honored or displaced. I wanted to ask what went wrong, but she didn't look like she could say it. Her eyes were glassy, her voice barely a thread. It's strange how the same kind of kindness can break you twice. I reached out, not to hold her, not to fix her, just to keep her from disappearing into that silence again. But she stepped back, only half an inch, and it was enough to redraw the line. "Don't look at me like that," she whispered. "Not today." And then she walked away, leaving me standing there with the book in my hand, her younger self staring back from the photograph, smiling in a light that neither of us could return to. I found myself at her house again, not by accident this time. Ryan had finally moved out, into a small apartment downtown, and he'd left a few things behind. I offered to pick them up, though we both knew that wasn't the real reason I came. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised. Just tired, like she'd been expecting this, or trying not to. "You kept the same tea," I said, nodding toward the familiar cup on the counter. She smiled faintly. "Creature of habit." I noticed. The house was quieter now. Fewer things, fewer signs of other people. Only her. The smell of rain, faint, ghost-like, clung to the air again, though the windows were closed. We sat opposite each other at the kitchen table, the same one where everything had started. She didn't make tea this time. Neither of us filled the silence. It felt like it belonged to us now. Finally, she spoke. "You didn't come here for Ryan's things." "No," she nodded, as if she'd already decided what I'd say before I said it. Her eyes flicked toward the window, where light spilled in slow gold. "You should have stopped coming here a long time ago." I tried. And I kept finding reasons. Something in her face softened. The resistance, the careful distance she always carried. She exhaled, long and slow, like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "I don't know what this is," she said. "And I don't think I want to name it. Everything that gets named starts to fade. I don't want to name it either." "Then what do you want?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "To stay here," I said, just long enough for it to feel real. Her eyes met mine, and in that moment, the years between us didn't feel like a gap, just two lives caught at different times in the same silence. She reached for her mug, then set it down again without drinking. "You remind me," she said slowly, "that I can still want something I shouldn't." I didn't answer. I just reached across the table, my fingers barely brushing hers. She didn't pull away this time. Her hand turned in mine, her skin warm and trembling. We stayed like that, hands half joined, not holding, not letting go. No words, no grand confession. Just the quiet rhythm of breath and heartbeat in the same small space. After a while, she whispered, "This can't last." "I know, but it's happening anyway," she said, and her voice cracked just slightly. The sound of surrender, not to me, but to the moment itself. Outside, the wind shifted. The curtains moved as if the house itself exhaled. She stood, walked around the table, and stopped beside me. Her fingers brushed through my hair, then rested against the back of my neck. Neither of us moved closer. Neither of us needed to. The silence between us said everything. And when she finally stepped back, the warmth lingered, a quiet, irrevocable truth hanging in the air. Some things don't need to be said to be answered. It's been almost a year since that last night in her kitchen. I haven't seen her since, not really. Once, I thought I caught a glimpse of her outside the cafe near the bookstore, her hair pinned up, a scarf looped too many times around her neck. But by the time I blinked, she was gone. Maybe she was never there. Life kept moving, as it always does. Ryan and I still talk sometimes, about work, about the weather, never about her. I think he knows, in some quiet way. The kind of knowing that doesn't ask for details. But some days, when the light hits a certain way, soft, golden, low in the sky, I remember that afternoon when she reached across the table. The way her fingers trembled against mine, not from fear, but from being seen. I used to think love was something that built toward a moment, a confession, a kiss, a decision. Something you could win. But what I learned from her is quieter than that. It's in the pauses, the restraint, the way two people can mean everything to each other for a heartbeat and still walk away because they have to. She once told me that naming something makes it fade. I didn't believe her then. I do now. There's a kind of peace in the not knowing, in the space where love doesn't have to become anything. Maybe that's what she gave me without realizing it. A lesson in wanting without owning, feeling without taking. I still keep that book of photographs. It sits on my shelf, the one she touched that day. Sometimes I open it just to look at the picture tucked inside, the younger her, smiling in light I never got to see. And I wonder if she ever found that feeling again, the one that scared her enough to send me away. I hope she did. As for me, I think I'm still learning how to exist in the space she left behind. Not mourning it, not chasing it, just holding it, gently, the way she once held my hand across that wooden table. When I think of her now, it isn't with regret. It's with a kind of quiet gratitude for the ache that taught me how to listen, for the silence that said more than words ever could. Love doesn't always ask for a future. Sometimes it just asks to be felt. Honestly, once, and that's enough to change you. Maybe she knew that all along. Maybe that's why she let me go. And maybe, if I'm lucky, one day I'll stop replaying the sound of her voice in my head, whispering, "Some things don't need to be said to be answered." But not today. Sparkles, if this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?